Welcome to Get Your Bell Rug Pro Wrestling Podcast. I am your host, KG Landry. And with me, I have a second generation wrestler, the son of a man who was known by many in the WWE amongst many other promotions. I am talking about Royce Adams, the son of Brian Adams. Man, what's going on, Royce?
Hey man, I'm going good. How you doing?
Doing pretty good, man. I first met, Royce and I first met in Vegas at the Cauliflower reunion. How has life been treating you since then?
Pretty good. I mean, when I got back home, it took me a minute to resettle in and stuff, and other than that, life pretty much got back to normal for the most part. Yeah.
Right, right. Let's talk a little bit about your dad. Now, you're a pretty laid back guy, at least the Royce I've gotten to know. Do people ever expect you? Do they try to compare you to your dad for being that high energy type of a guy that we at least knew on TV?
Uh. Uh. Well, yeah, kind of like yeah, I guess so. I mean, it's so easy to compare me with my dad and stuff that it's almost like they compare me a little too much. They forget
Right.
that I'm just the son and all that. So, but it's just how it is. Yeah.
Yeah. What was it like growing up with a dad that was considered to be larger than life amongst so many fans who loved him?
Well, like most kids, it felt like having a normal dad at first because I didn't know what he did at like when I was like very young. I had no idea what he did at all. I had no like perception of what he did. I just saw him as a dad and stuff, and that's just how it was. And then one day when I was playing some games and stuff, I noticed he was on one of them, and a wrestling game, and I thought, wow, that looks just like dad. That is dad, and I think I remember asking him about it, like, Dad, why are you in the game? And he's like, because that's what I do, Royce. I wrestle. I'm like, really?
That's awesome. Actually, that's a great story. What are some of the lessons that your dad taught you that you still live by today?
Well, God, it's been so long. Well, I guess you can say he taught me to be, to be kind and stuff, be patient, uh, not to get carried away with my strength because I guess as a kid I was pretty strong, and he told me to always watch my strength, especially when I roughhouse with my brother. As a child, I sometimes may hurt him a little because that's what happens. We're kids, right?
Right.
And he would tell me, be careful, Royce. You don't know your own strength, that sort of thing, and that's. I mean, I'm sure he taught me some more lessons. It just takes me a while to try to remember it all
Right.
at once,
Right.
though. So,
Right.
but
Now,
that was the first that come up the top of my head.
um, before your dad passed, I mean, did he know that you wanted to follow in his footsteps and be a professional wrestler?
He did. I did tell him at some point when I was a kid that I wanted to be a wrestler, and obviously because he cares, he told he wanted to make sure I knew exactly how wrestling was, like so whenever we watched the matches and stuff, he would kind of break it down to me on what's really happening and stuff. It not all at once. It would start with like saying, "Okay, Royce, just so you know, that guy is definitely gonna win. That guy's gonna lose," and they're predetermined. I'm like, "Oh, okay, okay." He's slowly telling me that it's all like a rigged fight.
Right.
Next time he tells me when the guy hits another guy, he tells me, he's not hitting him for real. He's just, you know, tapping him on the head and stuff. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then finally, one day he just told me flat out, wrestling's fake, and then of course 9-year-old me at the time didn't like to hear that. I was like, oh, I was bummed out, but I got over it and I started to understand how it really is, especially when he told me, hey, no, despite knowing that, that doesn't mean you can't enjoy it still. And I'm like, you know what, you're right.
Right. Now,
Yeah.
unfortunately, when we lost your dad, Brian, you were still pretty young. But even so, at the age that you're at, with him knowing you want to go to professional wrestling, is there one particular thing that he drove home to you about the business that he really wanted you to know about?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I'll be honest. I'm honestly not so sure because I remember he told me that when let's just say for some summation, I was taking martial arts, right? I was training martial arts, and he told me that when I finally become a black belt, uh, he would teach me about wrestling and stuff. That was just sort of like what he promised me, and unfortunately, it never came to be because he
Right.
passed way before I even, well, yeah. So when he passed, it's just how it is. He never really taught me anything too much about the business. Because you gotta understand, I was only 12 when he passed,
Right.
so it's
Right.
like there's no way a little boy like me could like understand anything, let
Mhm.
alone be able to
Right.
do it. So that's just
Yeah.
how it was.
Yep. Yep. Now let's get into to you. Again, obviously your dad was a well-known professional wrestler, so I mean I know that you probably idolized him within a sport. But
Mhm.
besides your dad, uh, who was the biggest mentors, people that you looked up to in professional wrestling whenever you were a kid watching it?
Well, my favorite wrestlers that I looked up to were guys like Eddie Guerrero. I used to be a huge fan of him as a kid. I always loved his charisma, how he shows up in a lowrider. He just knew how to tell a great story. Guys like him, Undertaker, and uh, am I allowed to say Chris Benoit's name?
Yep, you can say whatever you want in this podcast, man. Anything.
Okay, okay, good. Yeah, Chris Benoit too. He was one of my favorites too up until the unfortunate tragedy.
Right.
And so yeah, all of them, had are something that I really like idolize in wrestling. I never really watched Japan Pro Wrestling when I was a kid. The only because now that I think about it, I hear a lot of people talk about Japan when I was a kid, but I had no idea how to watch it, so I only stuck with American stuff,
Right.
and those are my usual go-to.
Right. Now, how old were you when you finally decided that you were going to follow through with becoming a professional wrestler? And talk to me about, did you have help getting led in the right direction as far as what school to go to?
Well, so that's a good question. It kind of went back and forth for me. I was always saying I would want to do it when I was a kid. Even throughout high school, I was thinking about it. But then at some point, I gave up on it and just I was trying to do something else shortly after high school, but it never panned through. So I eventually decided, screw it, I'm just gonna do pro wrestling. And I think I was like what 2021 when I decided officially,
Right.
and and my stepdad figure. My mom was actually started dating this guy who also used to be a wrestler. Think you met him back at the CAC. He was Buck Quartermain.
Yep. Yep. Good guy.
Yep, he was actually the guy that got me set up with some guys that he knew that could help train me because Buck Buck can train me and stuff, but there's only so much he can train me because he's a good wrestler, but I think sometimes he doesn't see himself as that good of a teacher because of his training methods and stuff. So he wants me to like go to a place where he feels like I can get some good training. So I had several guys that trained me. Those guys, the first guy was this old school referee named Frankie Reyes. He had like a local school nearby, and he taught me like very basic stuff. Just you know the simple, like just locking up, by slam, that sort of thing. And then his school got shut down, and eventually I moved over to Jay Lethal's school. You
Oh,
know Jay
wow.
Lethal, right? Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. When I was looking up, when he told me about Jay Lethal, and I looked into him, I was thinking, wow, this guy's kind of a big deal. I mean,
Right.
surprised he had a school nearby, and I almost didn't believe it at first, but sure enough, he did. And I'm like, all right, this is cool. And it's thanks to him. He taught me a lot of the things that I know today. Like not
Right.
just moves and stuff, but like terms. Like shine, cut off, hope spot, heat, that sort of thing. And because before that, I had no idea what any of those were. Like sometimes before, I would be like in the middle of a lockup, and someone says, "All right, going for the heat." I'm like, "The hell is the heat?" You know what? Try to tell me to light them up or something? Set them on fire? I had no idea what
Right,
heat meant.
right, right. Now, with you being fortunate enough to have a father, like Brian Adams in business, and fortunate enough to have a stepfather like Buck, do
Mhm.
you feel like that you were really prepared to when you went to J Lethal School, or was there a lot of things that surprised you that you didn't know yet?
Well, it's kind of like a mix of both. He kind of did prepare me in a way that he tried to like warn me about what was to come, what to expect and all that. And but the thing is, though, experience is the greatest teacher because
Right,
you can only tell so much to someone before they get in without having to make them go through it physically. Like
right,
I may have taken like a bump or two once before in a ring, but that's literally it. He'll be telling me stuff like, okay, you're gonna have to do all sorts of stuff like push-ups, sit-ups, basic stuff, and they're also gonna learn how to take many bumps and stuff. And I'm like, okay, cool. And you have to learn how to call stuff in the ring. That's another thing. And he told me that, but you can only do so much with being told what to do versus actually doing it. So
right,
and
right,
it's by
right.
doing it in not only in practice but in matches too. That's where you really start to learn how to run in the ring and stuff. And like that's why sometimes I like to say experience is the greatest teacher. So
Right. Now, was it frustrating for you at all? Your last name's Adams. You
mhm,
look like your dad.
mhm.
Did that become an obstacle within itself with getting in the business, with people expecting you to be who your dad was?
Yeah, I've been. It's becoming more obvious in past years, of course. Like at first, I figured, okay, it won't be too bad. I mean, people know. Eventually, people knew who my dad was, and I'm sure it'll help open some doors. But at the same time, though, it's kind of become like a curse. It's
Right.
like people are comparing me with my dad, and not to say that's a bad thing. I don't mind that. It's just it tends to well it becomes
You're
an
your own
obstacle.
person.
Well, it's not just that, I mean, because not just like character wise, but size wise too, because my dad was huge. He was like at
Hmm.
least 6'6", maybe 6'7", weighed over 300 pounds at some point, and here I am, 6'2", 6'3", Sometimes I weigh somewhere between like 240 or 250, There's no way I'm gonna be that heavy, like
Right.
300. Like, ain't no
Right.
goddamn way. I'm not gonna. What am I gonna do? Like eat up and turn to Yokozuna or something? Hell no. Shit.
Right. Now, tell me about your first match. What do you remember about that night and your first match? Was it something? 9 out of 10 people who I've had on this podcast, when they talk about their first match, they're like, it was terrible, right? Do you feel that way about your first match, or was it something that you just got?
Well, I mean, well, that's the thing though. My first match wasn't really a match per se. It was more like a student battle royale where
Mhm.
they had a whole bunch of us in the ring and stuff. Actually, you know what? Screw that. That doesn't really count as a match. That's just a whole bunch of us just going and
Right,
beating each other. My first
right,
real match was it was with this dude named Aaron Nova, and I did all right. They said, but looking back though, yeah, I definitely I feel like I've come a long way from my first match for sure.
right. How would you describe your style in the ring?
My style, I'm more like like I'm more like a powerhouse kind of guy. Like I Yeah, like I'm a powerhouse guy. I lift the guys up, throw them down, give them like a few punches and kicks and stuff. I'm not I am agile, but I don't do acrobatic stuff. Like I guess every once in a while you'll see me do like a cross body off the top turnbuckle, and that's usually
Mm.
it. You know, like I could
Right.
I can move around pretty good. It's just a guy my size though. I mean, compared to the guys I usually work, it's just I don't know. This doesn't feel right. Seeing a guy 6'3" doing all sorts of acrobatic stuff on guys
Right.
that's usually within the 5'6" to 5'11" range. I mean, I've worked bigger guys before too, but that's kind of a rarity these days. So
Yeah. Um, what promotions have you worked for thus far? And is there any particular moments that stand out in your journey thus far?
Uh, well, I worked for some of the local guys. Like I worked for Tampa Bay Pro Wrestling 2.0. That was something that was up in Orlando, and and of course WWN. And there's a few more promotions down here in Florida I've been to, but I've also been to Jamaica. I wrestled for one of their promotions down there. That's a crazy story all on its own. I think they were called Ah, I think it was called International Pro Wrestling or something. I think that's what it's called. It's been so long. There was that, and then there's also Germany. Uh, Trying to remember the name. I think it was like Pro Wrestling Alliance. I think it was called.
Mhm.
I could be wrong. I would try and fact check this real quick. Because I hate getting these promotions names wrong. But
Right.
but yeah,
Right.
those are the only like out of country promotions I've been to thus far, and they're pretty good, especially
Right.
Germany.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you're still fairly young within your journey in professional wrestling. Um, do you think you found yourself as far as who you are in professional wrestling, or do you think that you're still on that journey, looking for just that right thing that's going to define you in professional wrestling?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I would like to say that I'm at a right place, like person and character wise and all that. But I also feel at the same time there's always, plenty of opportunity for growth and stuff, and more learning involved too. So, like, let's just say, should I be given the opportunity to learn at a school like say if the dungeon, the dungeon, right? If the
Yeah,
dungeon still
absolutely.
exists, if the dungeon still exists and stuff, I would be honored to train there. I would be happy to train in that, or if if WWE ever came knocking and asked if I want to train at the PC, I would definitely show up for that too. Yeah.
Right. Now, has there ever been the thought of losing the Adams name in professional wrestling just because of it's going to be human nature? People are going to always want to compare you with your father. So, has there ever been that thought of not being Royce Adams and being, having another last name just so that you could go through this process without having to worry about being compared so much?
Hmm. I have thought about that for a while now. Like you're asking if I ever thought about having a different name
Yeah.
completely, right? Like
Yeah.
legal
Yep.
name, you mean?
Well, not legal, but just in the wrestling world.
Okay. Like they just change it to a different name.
Right.
I have actually, yeah. Before I always thought about calling myself something else. Like it's been so long, but like at one point I was thinking about going like something Takahashi because I got folks from my mom's side that used to have the last name Takahashi, and I figured I'd go with something like that, and not have the Adams name in it, but it's like it like comes and goes.
Yeah.
That's just how it is. Sometimes I even feel like not wrestling with a full name, I just wrestling like with like a title or something, like those
Mhm.
one name, the
Yeah.
people that wrestle under one name and stuff,
Yeah.
kind of like how it's like Undertaker,
Right.
freaking who else is there that has like one name, but you get the idea.
Right. Right. Now, the opposite, it's kind of like an opposite question. Have you thought about using your last name and even your dad, to pull in favors to try to get you elevated a little bit further than where you may be at now?
Hmm. Well, that is a good question. I would kind of say I would like to and stuff, but the thing is though, I don't want to be given, too much of a special privilege and stuff because it just takes away the honesty of the experience from me because as much as I would like to be given a great opportunity in this business, I kind of want to feel like I earned it at the same time,
Right.
though, you know,
Right.
because otherwise, it just it just feels like an empty victory of sorts, you know.
Mhm.
Like I don't know that how that's how it works with a lot of these other guys, you know. Like I hear stuff about how Ric Flair did that for, or he tried to for his son, uh, Reed Flair at one point,
Yep.
based on what I heard in a documentary. And not, you know, I don't know if the same goes for Randy Orton or you know any other next gen really. So I because they're I don't know how to put it, but they I guess their folks because their folks were still around, they could still give them like input, you know.
Right.
In my case, my because my father, you know, is no longer with me, I feel like I still have to like, you know, push on my own. I still have support from family and friends and stuff, and people do recognize the name, but at the same time though, it also goes back to the whole comparing me with my dad thing, you know. So it's like,
Right.
you know, so
Right. Now, even though your dad's not around, you still have, there's things through memory that you could still use to make yourself better. And when I'm talking about when I say better, as far as injuries, right?
mhm.
It Do you have memories of seeing your father injured and knowing, kind of, well, this is why he was injured? And has that affected you in your career by trying to do it opposite than what he did in order for you not to have to go through those same injuries that he has gone through? Because I've talked to a lot of guys, and one thing they've all said to me that's been the same was a lot of the injuries that's happened has been because of them being on the road for too long and their body not getting enough rest.
Mhm.
Injuries happen when you're tired. So has that been kind of an aspect in your life within, how busy your dad was?
Uh, like you're okay. So you're trying to ask if my dad being injured kind of like gave me like some kind of like perspective or something
Yeah,
like.
perspective of, what, I know back then my dad had to do
Mhm.
this. I don't want to do it that way because again, I want to preserve my career and not suffer those injuries that could have been avoided.
Yeah, not because now that you mention it, I do remember my dad. You know, seeing my dad all hurt and stuff. Like I remember he would always complain about his back. You know, his back would be having problems and stuff. And I even remember he was talking about what happened if his back was broken, and young me didn't know what that would mean. You know,
Right.
he would, you know, he would be like, I'm like, well, that's unfortunate, you know, but at least he'll still be able to move around. And he'd be like, no, not really, Royce, because my back's broken. I have to be in a wheelchair.
Right.
Didn't know how the biology works back then. I was like, why? Because your legs are broken. And then he tells me the whole science behind it, and I realized, oh, that's why. So yeah, so I do remember my dad having aches and pains from this business, the surgery he had to go through, him being on a walker for a while, and yeah, I was already kind of aware of what may happen to me because based on what I saw my dad go through, but that's the thing though, because as much as I would like to say I'm prepared, I feel like it's still, you know, not inevitable, but
Right.
it can happen out of nowhere because you never know. Like it could be like a simple match or whatever that can result in a severe injury. You know, like that's just how the risk in
It
the
is.
business works,
Right.
man. It's just
Right. Right.
yeah.
Absolutely. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but
Hmm.
wasn't your mom in Vegas as well?
Yeah, yeah, she
I
was there
thought so.
too.
I thought I bet your mom. Yeah. What was your mom's reaction? Because look, it's one thing for a kid to say, "Well, I want to be a professional wrestler. I want to be this. I want to be that." Right? As kids, we all say we want to do something,
Mhm.
but 9 times out of 10, when we get to that age, we completely change what we want to do with our lives.
Yeah.
What was your mom's reaction when she seen that you're actually pursuing this wrestling thing?
I mean, rightfully concerned is what she was, you know. And I remember she would ask me repeatedly, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And I'd be like, "Yes, mom, I want to do this." Christ, you know. Like I mean, maybe not too much, but it's like she always tries to like make sure she just wants to make sure I'm doing the right choice. I mean, even after the on the fly match, she would ask me, "Are you all right, Royce? Yeah, I look kind of rough out there." I'm like, "Yes, Mom, I'm fine." I guess because she saw I had a little cut on my forehead and
Right.
stuff, and
Right.
because I was selling a lot after the match, because
Mhm.
that's what you're supposed to do. You're
Absolutely.
supposed to sell the match. She thought I was like hurt for real or something, or just really tired. And yeah, both her and my stepdad, in fact, they were like trying to make sure I was all right. I'm like, yes, for God's sake, I'm fine.
Right.
Like,
And we'll get you on the fly because I want to talk to you about that. But one thing that I took away from getting to know you in
mhm,
Vegas was I've met a lot of great people. And for those who watch this, don't take this offensively because you all are great individuals. But of
mhm,
everyone that I met in
yeah,
Vegas, you were the one that even my wife said this, considering, who your dad was. Um, you were such a nice guy. You were so humbled. What keeps you grounded?
well, oh man, I really like that question. Well, for starters, I say that because I'm second gen, like I feel like I've been given a more better opportunity. I look at like not everyone's gonna have a dad that was also a wrestler, so I try not to feel too proud about that. I try to stay humble because it feels better, because not everyone's gonna have, you know, the ability to say, "Hey, I got family that wrestle too." Not that many people can say that. There's that, and second, I was taught at a young age. You got to be kind to others. That sort of thing. I had a pretty good upbringing, I guess you can call it that. And three, I'm just a naturally nice guy, honestly. I don't see the point of me bragging my swagger around. I mean, yeah, there'll be times I'll brag a little bit, to
Right.
maybe friends and coworkers, like yeah, I'm strong and stuff. Yeah, but at the same time, I'm just feels just feels natural to be humble and stuff. Just
Right.
I don't get no pleasure acting like some arrogant prick or whatever.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Now, and I think I believe you. I believe that you're natural, just a good guy. But here's the question for you: in professional wrestling, there's also heels, right?
Yes.
Have you had the opportunity to be a heel? And if so, how did you pull that off? The second part is, if not, do you think you could pull off being a heel because you are just such a naturally nice guy?
Well, actually, back home, I am a heel right now, believe it or not.
Okay, interesting.
And well, dang, that's the thing though, because I try when I'm being a heel, I try to be arrogant and overconfident, and just be a braggart, be boastful. That's what I would do as a heel and stuff, or what, in the ring, I would sometimes do underhanded tactics and stuff that people would see and be like, "Hey, that's not fair," you know. And be more aggressive too. That's one thing
Right.
I always hear all the time is people telling me, you gotta be more aggressive, because like I told you, I try not to like get too carried away because I guess that stems back to when I was a kid. My dad always told me to, be careful of my strength and stuff, because
Right.
I guess it does stem back to my childhood. So that could be a part of it, and second, that's just how it is. It's just who I am.
Right. Now, do you prefer being a heel or a babyface? Because being a heel, everyone loves to be able to pretend like, that there's something that they're really not. Being a heel for you, that's absolutely not who you are as a person. So is this something do you like being a heel? Do you dislike it? And
Oh yeah.
again, though, is it a big challenge for you? Or do you have a hard time selling yourself to the fans as a heel just because of, again, you just being that natural baby face?
I don't know. I mean, I kind of do like being a heel. It makes me feel more like, I guess, more powerful. If that makes sense. That, and also I see it as a challenge too to help me try and help myself. You know, like to change. because
Right.
I've been a face for several years and stuff, and I figured, at this point, I may as well try my hand as a heel and stuff,
Mhm.
and yeah, it's like that's just how I see it, as a good
Right.
challenge and stuff, and
Right.
yeah.
Right. Kurt DeBoer, who's on our podcast from time to time. He helps me host. He's also doing his own thing, guys. So be looking to check him out. He thank you, Kurt, for being on the podcast or tuning in tonight. He says Brian was definitely one of the good guys. Let's talk about On the Fly in Vegas.
Hmm.
That was the first time I had the opportunity to watch you wrestle. You
Hmm.
were definitely impressive. I think you're extremely talented.
Thank you.
Now, for those who don't know what On the Fly is, this is an event that is done at the Cauliflower Alley Club reunion in Vegas. They basically take guys who are professional wrestlers, managers, referees, and legends literally pick out those who they want to see in the ring. Oftentimes, these are individuals who's never worked with one another before. Sometimes they've never met before. In your case, Brian, talk to me about, was there nerves going on before you were picked? Because again, here you are, you're going to demonstrate how talented you are, but at the same time, you're doing so against someone that maybe you've never worked before. You did not know
Hmm.
the legend, who was going to pick you and pick your opponent. Talk to me about what was going on through your head, in your head, when you're waiting for a legend to pick you.
Oh man, nervous, because it's one thing to, when you go on stage to wrestle and stuff, despite knowing what's going to happen. It's one thing to go, yeah, basically that's what it is. It's one thing to go on stage knowing what you're going to do, but still worrying about what's going to happen. But it's another when you're getting randomly picked and not knowing who you're going to work with. So, and I'm sitting there and stuff. Everyone's getting picked randomly. I'm nearly the last one. And I was actually thinking at one point, I was thinking, what if I don't get picked at all and I just don't wrestle? Because that's what happened last year. I was at last year's CAC, and that's actually what happened. So, a handful of guys did not go into the ring at all, except for like the lumberjack match. So yeah. So I was thinking to myself, what if I don't get picked? But then finally, I think one of the last two matches, someone was thinking, why don't we have a tag match? Yeah. And then, they picked two guys from one side. And as they're thinking, who on this side should go in? And then, God damn it, I hate these guys so much for this. They're like, Royce, Royce, Royce. I'm like, shut the fuck up, man. I don't want to do a tag match. They kept chanting my name, Royce, Royce, Royce. I'm like, you know what? Fine, let's do this. And I get up. I'm like, come on, let's go. I'm ready. Let's go. They, so they had me go in. They paired me up with actually one of the local guys from Florida. I forgot his full name. I know it's called Naj or something.
Yeah.
Great guy, great worker. From Florida, just like me. I was like, what are the odds? Me and him being like a tag partner versus these other guys that I never worked with. So, it worked out better than I expected. A couple of hiccups may have happened, but I was like, you know what? I'm kind of glad for the outcome. And everyone said the same thing too. My folks told me, well, they told me that my match was one of the best ones in there,
It
and
was.
yeah, I,
And I'm not just saying this. I mean, to as a testament to how good you and your partner, who you've never worked with before, how good you
mhm.
guys were. We actually had an unexpected turn. I mean, you guys were supposed to be the heels,
Yeah,
and because of the audience, the fans, you guys were the baby faces. They refused to boo you guys because of how good you were in the ring. What was going through your head at that point? Here you are, you and your partner, you guys never worked together. You're supposed to be heels. And after a few minutes of the fans seeing you guys perform in the ring, they start chanting for you. What went through your head at that point?
I was thinking, well, damn, I guess we're either doing so good that they want to cheer for us instead, or because we have the more friendlier look, like especially in Naj's case, because he has the more like he has like a more face look than a bad guy look. Plus, when you look at the guys who are working, they kind of look more like heels than faces. So it kind of just worked like that, you know. So
Right.
yeah, I mean,
Right.
I was
Well,
thinking,
but
well, hey, let's do this, you know. Yeah.
I tell you, man, you're right. Joe Helms, who's a friend of mine, he is the silverback. What's crazy about that is you would think that people would boo him because he does, as a silverback, have that heel look. But normally, people love this guy. They love the silverback. But in this particular match, man, the fans latched on to you and your partner. And I mean, I remember when it first happened, my wife and I both looked at each other because I was doing, the podcast during the match. My wife was helping doing whatever she was doing, and we both made eye contact, and we were both like, "Wow!" I mean, and this was absolutely the best match in my opinion, and many others of the night. Um, I know you had a lot of people come talk to you after that. Talk to me about the sense of pride that you had to feel at that moment, being that you had so many people come and talk to you, giving you guys flowers, telling you how good you guys were.
I feel honored, honestly. I felt like in a way, I accomplished more than what I expected because, I mean, I'm very bashful when it comes to this sort of thing. You know, I'm like super shy, and just to get on in the ring alone is already, nerve wracking as is. So to get that much praise, for what I did, that's a really big deal for me. You know, it feels like I accomplished something big that day, and it's what it's what helps keep me going in this business. The acknowledgement and stuff, and that's really one of the reasons why I wrestle is to feel like like to feel like I belong. Because just it just feels good to be in the ring. You know,
Right.
it's fun to me. It's fun to get out there just to mess around. Just to throw around, get thrown around and stuff. I'm thinking, damn, this is a good time right here.
Right.
So yeah. So all that
Now,
praise that they give me, it just really makes me, feel proud of myself.
right. As you should. Like I said, you're one hell of a talent, man. Now, again, I know your journey is still fairly young in the business. You've only been doing this for a few years, right?
Mm,
Have you
uh-huh.
have
Yeah.
you found someone that is just your favorite opponent yet that you
Mm.
just love getting into the ring with?
There are a couple of guys actually that I've been in the ring, that I would say are the best guys to work with. Uh, One of them, this is actually someone that I wrestled back in Germany. He was called Bad Bones. I think his name was John Klinger. Uh, I don't know if you ever heard of him. He's like one of the local guys. I
Yeah.
think he was on TNA at one point. That's what they told me, or at least that's what the promoter told me. But our match over there was phenomenal. Like we had a good time. Lanny Poffo. I'm sure you know who Lanny
No,
Poffo.
absolutely, absolutely.
He was there and he loved it. I mean, apart from being involved in his own way, he thought that was like one of the best matches he's ever seen. I remember he was telling me about it. He was telling me about it to my mom, who they haven't seen in like so long, but remember each other. And I agree. The match I had with him was great, and it's only more heartbreaking knowing what ended up happening to him too, because sadly
Right,
well, he's unfortunately to say this, he's no longer with us.
right.
Yeah, it really did kind of hurt me a little knowing that, one of the best guys I worked with ended up passing. I was just like, what? I mean, so it's, yeah, so he's definitely up there, like top three best matches for me. There's him and damn, I'm trying to think for a minute here. It's so hard to it's so hard to look back on some of these matches,
Right.
because it meshes in so well. It's like,
Right. Well, and I'm putting you on
yeah,
the spot, obviously. For the fans who watch, I don't go over questions with my guests because I like everything to be organic. And sometimes we do put you on a spot, and when you put on a spot, your brain blanks. This
yeah.
may be a little bit easier though. Do you have dream matches, people that you want to get in the ring with?
Dream matches. Oh man, I don't know, man. My dream matches are usually pretty big,
Yeah.
practically non-existent. Like for starters, I would like to have a match with like old school legends like Hulk Hogan or Shawn Michaels, that kind of thing. Like
Right.
matches that I know are never gonna end up
Right.
happening. But if I had to do like a real life match though, dang, that's a good question though. I can't really think on the top of my head, honestly. I'm just the worst at this. I meant to tell you this earlier too.
It's fine,
When
man.
when I'm thinking all these things, man, I'm just like not the best at coming off on the spot. It takes me a minute to think. That's why I ramble a lot when I answer questions
It's
and
look,
stuff.
it's fine, man. I am the worst on my podcast of forgetting things. I mean, things will be written in front of me and I'll still forget. Let me ask you this.
Mhm.
Do you keep up with today's product with your AEWs, your WWEs, your TNAs, even your NWAs?
Mostly WWE because that's it strikes more at home for me and stuff. And yeah, so I keep up with mostly their stuff. I try keeping up with AEW, but before it was easy to do so, but nowadays it's like hard to like know what's going on anymore, like there's
Right.
storylines. I don't know what's going on over there, but uh I mean, yeah, I'm sorry, but I
No,
don't know
you
what's going on.
trust me. We do the recaps and sometimes I'm scratching my head. Um, you talked about New Japan earlier
Mhm.
and how you really, you knew of New Japan, but you didn't know how to watch it, as a kid. Have you ever thought about going over and wrestling with New Japan at all?
I have actually, yeah. I actually went to one of their shows back in 2019, believe it or not. I went to Japan mostly to visit family because I got folks over there, and while I was there, I got to meet up with a family friend. Does the name Osamu Nishimuta is it Yeah, Osamu Nishimuta ring any
Mhm.
bells?
Yeah, it does. Yep.
He was the guy that my stepdad actually knew back in the old days, and we got to meet him, and we were discussing potential plans of me possibly training over there in Japanese territory. So everything was going good. I actually went to one of their shows. In fact, I went to I forgot what the first show was, but the second show was by Noah. You know what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. Noah, absolutely.
Yeah, their shows are phenomenal. Their intensity is like on a whole level. They even do their body slams differently. It's almost like, it's like it's this guy, he's got it right. Strong style.
Strong
That's what
style.
that is.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, man. It's like everything over there is more intensity and they know when to sell it properly. Like I remember Osama would tell me, like depending on the impact of the move, light punch, light
Mhm.
reaction, medium punch, medium reaction, heavy punch, you get the idea.
Right.
So
Right.
it's like they just are masters of the craft, and I was so looking forward at the idea of going over there. It's just when COVID happened, the whole lockdown of the countries and
Right.
stuff, it just I don't know, it just made my dreams kind of dash to, like for Japan at least. I mean,
Yeah.
there's still possibilities and stuff. I always say, I always believe in the phrase "never say never," but sometimes I gotta look at things more realistically too.
Right.
So
Right. Um, Question about your dad, if you don't mind.
yeah.
Do you have a favorite memory or favorite story about your dad?
Well, I remember he would always be a bit of a funny guy. I used to say all the time, that I don't remember much of him, but that's because it takes me a minute to like, try to remember exactly who he was. I'll admit some of my older interviews, I would say, don't remember much about him. Airport this, he was a big guy at that, but really, he was more just like a fun-loving, a good father figure over. I'm sorry, not figure, a good father overall. He
Right.
always tried to make sure I was doing good. He took care of me properly. He was funny too. I remember he's a bit of a prankster. He always likes to say some dumb shit. Or do stupid stuff. Like, remember one time at the pool, he had like the squirt gun. I was like, "Hey, Royce, look at this." What? Squirts around the eye, and I fall right in the water. I get back up,
Yeah.
He got me in the eye. And my dad's like, "Oh, grow up. That's just a water gun," and then, like times where he would try to sneak food off my plate or something. And I don't know, just dumb, funny moments. And
Right.
looking back too, man, my dad was a troublemaker. Like, I don't know if you ever hear stories about him through other interviews, but my dad liked to mess with people a lot, like even like Undertaker himself would go on his podcast to say how my dad would do like these dumb voice impressions and stuff. And I actually did listen to some old radios of my dad back when he used to do like voice impressions. Like, he would do impressions of this Asian wrestler named Tiger Chung Lee. You ever heard of him?
I have.
Yeah, he would use his voice and stuff, and he would call up people and he would pretend to be him, and they would think it was actually Tiger that's calling him. And this one time he calls up Chris Benoit, and he uses the Tiger voice, and he tells him, "Hey Chris, it's Tiger. I heard you stooged on me and I got fired, I hate you, you Canadian bastard." And then years later, we meet up at a gym, and then they were talking, and at some point Chris was like, "Man, that son of a bitch said I stooged on him, man. Wait till I get a hold of him," and then my dad would be like, "Wait a minute. Yo, Chris, that was me," freaking, that was like years prior. I'm thinking to myself, "Geez, Dad, you're trying to start fights with your voice."
That's great. Thanks for sharing that. Terry Zeller, friend of mine, great guy. He was also in professional wrestling. He wanted to say that, "Hey, Royce, I just want to let you know I knew your father. He was a great guy and always treated me well in the locker room." I have to imagine that you get a lot of that from guys from your dad's generation in professional wrestling, that he was just a great guy.
Oh yeah. I get that all the time. Old school legends. People. It's like, as soon as I tell them who my dad was, they'll take a moment to remember him fondly, and they'll tell me some good things. Like, I remember meeting Sergeant Slaughter one time at this signing. Like, he was in town for a little bit, and I figured, all right. I mean, I think you knew my dad, so I came up to him, said hi and stuff, told him my dad was, and he tells me the story how my dad got him to eat sushi for the first time. And I mean, I'm sure if you eat sushi regularly, it's no big deal. But when it was the first time, you're thinking, "Why do I have to eat this raw? That looks nasty," And I'm like, it was tricky for him at first, but he starts eating it, and yeah, that's the story he's got for me, about my dad. And I told him, "Wow, I really appreciate that, sir."
Yeah. Now, I want to ask you a question about two characters your dad was in professional wrestling.
Yeah.
One was Clash, and the other one was Chronic. Did you have a favorite between the two?
Well, as a kid, let's see, I grew up on Chronic, so
right.
That's how it was when I was a kid. I grew up on Chronic when I was a kid, because that's how old I was back then. So,
right.
I had no idea he was crushed until years later.
Yeah,
I saw some old videos and stuff.
Yep.
So
yeah. I say, see, you were talking about memory. I said Crash when I met Crush. So
yeah.
Don't feel bad about your memory, man.
Yeah, it's all good, man.
What is next for Royce?
Well, right now I'm just still working local shows and stuff. Nothing big's happening yet. I'm still just doing what I can, and because it's not just wrestling that I do. I also do like my shoot work at home and stuff. I got stuff at home that I'm trying to like work on. Look after stuff, and just making sure things are all good, because I don't know. It's always hard trying to leave home for a while to do wrestling, even for like when it's a little bit. But I still got a couple of things coming up, like my local shows. I know I'm doing like some more Tampa Bay Pro stuff, and then I'm also seeing about like maybe reaching out to another old friend and seeing what he's got going on and stuff, and see where that goes. So no, nothing crazy planned just yet. Just yeah, just regular
Right.
day-to-day life for me.
Um, Last question.
Mm.
Where would you like to see yourself as far as your career in 10 years?
10 years, I would like to think I'm working for one of the big promotions, like either WWE or AEW. I mean, I would like to be a part of that, but I'm not too, like, how would I say, like, blind to the possibility that it may not happen. I'm hopeful that I'll be able to work for those guys one day, but I won't be too upset if it never doesn't come to be, because it's just how it is. But like I always say, fingers crossed and stuff.
Right.
And yeah.
Yeah. So Kurt DeBoer, like I said, he was a professional wrestler. He's been on the podcast as my co-host. He says if you're interested, he might be able to get you over. Kurt and I are friends on social media, so if you're interested, reach out to me, Royce, and I'll get you his information.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always open to travel anywhere, like across the world. I mean, shoot, UK. I was only there for a minute when I was going through airports when I went to Germany and stuff, and I thought this place looks pretty nice, you know.
Right.
So
Right.
I hear pretty cool things about the UK, So yeah, I'll be happy to possibly go over there. Yeah.
Now, when you and I talked before, you were supposed to be on the podcast before some things that happened where we had to reschedule, but you said that you had an announcement that you wanted to make. I'm not sure if you're ready to make that announcement, or you still need to.
Oh no, that's like no crazy announcement. I was just gonna, I was telling you that I found some old tapes of my dad on the radio and stuff. Like just old radio stuff of him, doing the impressions and stuff. Nothing crazy. Just
Right.
just dug, just. I mean,
Right.
I tried recording it off of my phone because these are old CDs, like radio CDs. Like I don't know if anyone has a CD player these days, but
right.
yeah, but let's just say I record as much as I can on my phone, but the audio, it's crap, honestly. It's like, but yeah, there's just old radio stuff of my dad when he used to do like not just impressions of Tiger, but also Macho Man. Like when I was a kid, we used to listen to Cowhead. You remember Cowhead?
Yeah, I know Cowhead. Yep.
That's the radio he was on back in the early 2000s, and oh dang, how did it start? Oh, it started with sometimes the segments would start off with a moment in the mind of the Macho Man, and usually Macho it's talking about some weird stuff, Like I thought it was the real Randy, but then my dad would tell me, no, that's me, and I was like, really? And he would just do his impression right there, and yeah. Sometimes the story goes like this, he's like Michael Jackson was indicted yesterday over allegations, and then I'm bad at impressions,
right?
That's the best I can do for his voice, but yeah, my dad was spot on with the Macho Man impressions, so
yeah,
but yeah, that's basically what I was only trying to tell you. That I just found some old CDs, that's all.
Right on. Well, man, Royce, thank you for taking the time to come on the podcast. You're always welcomed. You're a pretty great guy. You're phenomenal in the ring. I have no doubts that one day when I turn on one of the big promotions, we'll see you in the ring. If that's what you want to do, keep pushing forward. Me and the rest of the fans, I'm sure that they don't mind me speaking for them when I say thank you for sharing your father with us. He was a big part of us growing up and watching him in the ring. Such a great guy. I hope to see you at the next reunion in Vegas. Would love to see you back in the ring. And yeah, man, just keep on doing what you're doing. Like I said, a pretty great guy, and you're really talented in the ring. So keep on moving forward, my friend.
I appreciate that, man. And yeah, I do plan on going back to Vegas next year, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, I look forward to seeing you again in person, man.
Absolutely. Guys, don't forget to check us out tomorrow as me, Bob Cook, Robbie Ido, K9 Cole. We'll be doing the recap of Monday Night Raw. It's going to be a good show tonight. What we liked and what we didn't like. Till then, you guys have a great week. Royce, again, thank you, my man. I really appreciate it.
Hey, man, anytime.